What's going on, my super fam? So Kazuha and Alhaitham banner is going to be arriving pretty soon for you guys, and I know that especially for those of you who have been waiting for Kazuha is going to be very excited, since if you didn't realize, it's kind of like a trend until now that Kazuha has kind of like a 1-year rerun, and it's always around June and July, which is kind of like a summertime for him. I don't know why Hoyoverse decided to do it, but it's already happening for the past 3 times. And so as usual guys, today's video will be talking about some of the most important notes you have to keep in mind before you actually go ahead and pull on this current banner. So with that, let's just dive into the videos. First off, we'll talk a bit about Kazuha. Now, I've already covered a lot about the important stuff regarding Kazuha in this specific video of mine, so how we'll do it today is we'll look more in depth into Constellations, because I know that many of us already have Kazuha and you guys might be going forward for the Constellations. But either way guys, Kazuha is still one of the best character in the game, especially when it comes to support and sub DPS, even though Anemo doesn't have any resonance with Dendro, because they are still able to pull it off really well, because he can still be functional in, you know, Dendro reaction teams like Burgeon, Hyper Bloom, Bloom team, you name it. You can technically slot him in and he will still be able to support your characters, not directly towards the Dendro character, but it will be towards either your Pyro, Electro or Hydro character, as well as helping out with those elements application, helping you out to trigger Dendro reactions a lot easier. And especially in this Abyss guys, it does favor Kazuha a lot also, because there is a lot of crowd control required, and he is still one of the best crowd controller in the game, just after Venti still of course, but he still does everything amazingly well. And looking at Kazuha's constellations, there's of course some of the most important that's going to be quite life changing for him. C1 is quite a decent constellation, where it does help you with his E skill cooldown, and after using his burst, his E skill duration cooldown will be reset. In other words, basically you're going to be able to use his E skill much more often, and this is quite beneficial because you will be able to crowd control a lot easier with Kazuha. Damage side will be depending on how much you have invested into his E skill, but the best thing I have found is that you are able to crowd control a lot easier, which especially in tougher Abyss, this is going to be helping you out quite a lot. Now his C2 is technically his most important constellations, because not only does it increases his EM by 200, therefore already increasing your team elemental damage bonus a lot, but he will also enable a 200 EM increase for any of the active character within his burst field aside from Kazuha. But either way, this is a very high boost, and not a lot of character in the games have access to this kind of EM buff. So if you're going for constellation for Kazuha, aim at him for a C2 and you're basically set for the rest of the game. C4 is absolutely not important, you're almost never going to have any benefit from this, and it only happens whenever his energy is lower than 45, so there's very little use of this. His C6 is quite nice if you are really into your Kazuha, because technically speaking you're now turning him into an Anemo DPS, so this is basically only for, you know, die-hard Kazuha fans who love using him on field for a lot, because of course his attack animation is pretty cool, so he can be on field. But I know that most of us are not going to be hitting him at C6, but if you do, it is a very cool and fun constellation to have. On to Alhaitham. He is guys still one of the top tier DPS right now, because of course he is a Dendro character, plus having access to very long uptime Dendro infusion for him with very high damage number. As I have talked a lot before, Alhaitham mechanic is really hard to get into, so if you are using him, you will have to spend quite some time practice his rotation, so that you can make sure that you have his chisel mirror, or basically Dendro infusion uptime as long as possible, plus the use of his burst to the right timing. But nevertheless, if you do have him, he's absolutely going to be very valuable for you, especially when you're going up against the Abyss, especially within this specific Abyss, since overall Alhaitham does have access to some of the best team build in the game. He is able to make use of it, so that's a very good thing. Now for Alhaitham Constellation, his C1, basically when a projection attack hits an opponent, his E skill cooldown is decreased by 1.2 seconds. Now in short, basically C1s allow his E skill cooldown to be reduced from 18 seconds to an average of 12 seconds if you are utilizing it to the maximum, therefore allowing you to generate Chisel Light Mirror a lot easier, and also allows you to have a longer Dendro infusion uptime for your Alhaitham, especially when you are having Alhaitham being on field. I know that there's kind of like a two type of Alhaitham gameplay where you're on an on-field DPS as well as burst DPS Alhaitham. So if you're playing a burst DPS Alhaitham, this is not going to be very beneficial, but nevertheless I do feel that most of us are going to be having on-field Alhaitham anyway, so this is going to be a decently good quality of life for him. But guys, obviously you do not need C1 for him to perform properly, and you're still going to be able to get the maximum benefit off of C0 Alhaitham. It's just going to be a little bit tougher for you to manage his stack, but if you have already been able to do so, then the importance of this constellation is not really high. C2, whenever Alhaitham generates Chisel Light Mirror, his EM will be increased by 50, and that's going to be a max 4 stack. Now on paper, this seems to be a nice DPS boost because Alhaitham does skills off of EM. However guys, in practice it is very unlikely that you will be able to maintain 3 or more stack for extended period of time, making this EM increase of a maximum 200 absolutely not consistent. If you're really into having a 200 EM increase guys, then there have been a lot of other EM buffer in the game where they can do it for you, you know, like Kazuha at C2, even though again Anemo doesn't react with Dendro, but Kazuha will still be able to hop increasing Alhaitham EM. C4 is kind of fine guys, it's not really that much of a difference. 30 EM for your nearby party members isn't that significant, and we've already have a lot more other characters to do so. Now you're potentially going to be having an extra 30% Dendro damage bonus, and this is going to be fine, but considering how much you're investing in C4, it's just not really that worth it guys. Now C6 is where all of the difference comes in, and of course if you have been following Alhaitham for a long time, you have heard many of the saying that it's either going to be you sticking at a C0 Alhaitham or you're just going to be getting a C6 Alhaitham, because a C6 is considered to be some of the best C6 in the game right now, granting a massive crit rate and crit damage bonus while giving you a lot easier time generating your Chisel Light Mirror, not to mention all of the other constellations you have been provided throughout until his C6. This is going to be resulting in a lot easier gameplay style for Alhaitham alongside with insanely high damage boost for him. So guys, if you do have the ability to invest into Alhaitham, get him all the way to C6, otherwise he's perfectly a well performing character at C0, and that would be all that he needs. Alright, so those are going to be the character of the 5-star banner features. Now let's have a look at the 4-star roster that is coming. It's actually nice to see that we did manage to kind of predict 2 characters that's almost correct. Last time we did get Xiangling and Hazel, which is kind of nice, but then we did miss on Yao Yao, though that is all good. Now overall guys, the 4-star on this banners is absolutely amazing guys. If you are not using Hazel, that is totally fine. However, if you are, Hazel is still one of the better DPS 4-star character driver out there that you can have, because not only is he able to deal decent damage for you, and the number just get exceptionally higher as the more constellation you have, but many of the time we have him as a driver for you on the team, being able to help trigger character like Xiangling and Xingqiu, where Xiangling and Yao Yao, 2 absolutely very high tier 4-star character. We all know how powerful Xiangling is, and obviously I hope that you all get C6 on Xiangling as soon as you can. Yao Yao, of course, one of the best Dendro healer out there. Of course, I know that there's only 2 Dendro healer, but considering she is a 4-star character, it is very valuable, and she also has some of the best Dendro application in the game, which is why Yao Yao has always been very valuable. Overall, an absolutely good 4-star roster considering how generous Hoyoverse can be when it comes to Kazuha's banner, because they know he's going to be selling well already, but they still managed to give you a very good 4-star roster like this. So be sure to make use of this banner however you can. For weapon banner guys, a very decent banner, because both of the Freedom Sworn and Light of the Foliar Incision will be able to find some use if if you do get it on your account. But the Freedom Sword, notoriously known as some of the few weapons in the game that actually provides your whole team a damage boost. So kind of like a support weapon for the team, because as you know, most of the weapons just purely increase the wearer's damage or supports the wearer only. So an absolutely perfect weapon, especially when it is held on Kazuha. Plus guys, it looks absolutely beautiful and it just fits the aesthetic regardless of what character you equip it on. Foliar Incision, absolutely the highest crit damage sword we have in the game right now, even if you don't make use of its passive, which I feel that most of the time you still do, because it does increase you a tiny bit of crit rate alongside with normal attack, and E skill do get enhanced a bit by your EM. Overall, a very decent weapon for you to have and can rival that, you know, of the Mist-Splitter and Jade Cutter. It's just that the passive is a little bit harder to make use of. 4-star weapon, generally speaking, I can only see the Favonius Sword and the Favonius Codex to be a decent weapon that you can make use of most of the time. Of course, the other weapon you can use, but the Favonius line of weapon is just still the best, and you do have 2 of it on this banner. So guys, if you do want to try and get your luck on this weapon banner, it is a very decent one for you to go for. Though of course, I still always recommend you to try and get characters on top of weapons, because weapons you will need to invest quite a lot if you are not lucky before you get a desired weapon of yours. And talking about the characters guys, of course I want to touch on them in the 5th section of the video, which is us considering the future banners. Now we haven't got any official saying on any kind of banner that's going to be coming in patch 3.8. Obviously at this point in time, I feel that all of us have known that there's not going to be any new character coming until at least Fontaine. So all of 3.8 is most likely going to be rerun. And when talking about rerun characters, I think that some of you have already known the first candidate is definitely going to be Eula. We have also heard that it's going to be, you know, Klee, Kokomi and Wanderer. Now guys, this is just going to be speculations, absolutely not official saying in any way, but the chance of these characters returning is decently high. Out of all, the most important character of course is gonna be Kokomi. Guys, if you haven't got Kokomi on your account, I really do say that it's kind of like a top priority for you to try and get her, because if you have Kokomi, it changes your team build and your account playing insanely high. So Kokomi is kind of like a character that will be on the consideration list for many of us. So if you are pulling on this banner and you're planning out for Kokomi as well, do try to make it moderate so that you can save up for Kokomi. Of course, Eula, a longest time character who didn't have her rerun and most likely will finally make her appearance again. Now I do feel that, you know, Eula isn't really a high priority character at this point in time any longer, because her performance is kind of falling off and she's more or less kind of like a preference character for you to go for at this point, since sadly there is almost no buff toward physical character right now. Of course, we do know that they've added Mika to try and buff physical, but let's be honest guys, Mika isn't really that good of a character to be on your team. So Eula, technically speaking, did not get any specific buff. Klee and Wanderer, again, both are going to be preference character, so that's going to be something for you guys to consider. Now of course, I'm going to be making a lot more videos on this character towards patch 3.8. So guys, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe so that you're not missing out on these future videos, and also a free way to support me and my channel. Plus guys, there's going to be a lot of giveaway for you guys, so that's going to be beneficial for you too. So that's all I have to say regarding this upcoming banner. I do wish you good luck on all of your pulls, and if you do have any question, leave it down in the comment section, and I or some other lovely Genshin players out there will be helping you out. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me till this part of the video guys, and with that I wish you a super day and I will catch you on my next video.